Hello guys, and welcome to Commander: The Great War, a World War I hex-based strategy war game. You have a couple different starting dates you can pick from. There's no specific tutorial, it's just tutorial messages, so hopefully my knowledge of this kind of gameplay holds up. You can play as the Entente allies of the Central Powers. Game has some cool features. I think it's supposed to play mostly historically, but I know almost nothing, so we're gonna have to jump in and figure this out together. I'm gonna be starting off as the winning side in history, the Entente allies, instead of the Central Powers, because I imagine the Central Powers would be harder to play, so I'd like to save that for a second playthrough. But for now, let's hit launch and see how this goes.
The Serbian army is ill-equipped but battle-hardened from the Balkan Wars, and has taken up positions in mountainous terrain. The Austrians have numeric superiority, but will soon have to face the Russian army in the east. Following the imminent outbreak of hostilities, the French intend to follow their pre-war offensive plan and take back the region of Alsace-Lorraine. The Russian Empire has access to almost unlimited manpower. Once mobilization is completed, its armies are expected to overrun Germany's eastern territories.
Ha!
Until that time, their other allies will have to hold back the Germans and Austrians on their own. The Entente alliance is large but divided. If they can cooperate effectively, the allies will soon bring down the Central Powers.
And there's our campaign briefing. So at the start here, we're only going to be playing as Serbia, and we will gain access to more nations as more nations join the war. So what we have to do before anything is hit start game before the game's actually going to let us do anything. So here we go, July 1914. Looks like the Central Powers get to move before the Allies do. Oh wow, that's actually pretty loud. I might want to lower that. Oh, more movements, and here we go. Welcome to your first campaign. You're looking at the campaign map. So we're going to have some nice little tutorial messages. Alright, so that tutorial, at least what it told me tutorial-wise, was not really very helpful. It basically said you have some buttons and they do some things. So let's take a look at this game together and figure it out. So right now, of course, we only have access to Serbia, and Serbia only has access right now to ground units. This is as far as we can zoom in. We can zoom out. It's a little bit laggy. I wish I could zoom in and get a better look at the units of which I'm dealing with, because my vision is not the greatest. We have production points. This can be used to make most things. We have manpower, which, according to what I read, this is a limited supply thing. We start out with 420 manpower as Serbia. We can never go above 420 on this country, I believe. There are some countries that can get around their original entry number, and I believe those are, for example, France and the UK. They gain some from convoys, which I know Serbia doesn't have access to, because it's to represent the colonies coming in and assisting with their fresh manpower. There's railroad capacity, which I imagine means how often we can use a railroad to get around per turn. Transport capacity, that's for shooting out transports from harbors, not important for Serbia, of course. National morale, which I can only infer is something you want to keep high. Get it too low and get your ass beat. Essentially, ammunition, something that's spent on artillery like this, and you need to create buildings like this to actually make ammunition. By the looks of it, we have 3 ammunition production. So yeah, so we'll get 3 ammunition per turn, and I think it takes several ammunition in order to do a volley. We can also see there's a way to keep track of kills. You can also change it to casualties, which are quite different looking here. Looks like the Austrians have inflicted more casualties onto us than we have to them, but we've inflicted more kills, or they've inflicted more kills? I don't know. It didn't explain it to me. I guess it makes sense the other way around, because we're missing 5 of these units and they're only missing 1 elsewhere. There's a diplomacy screen, which isn't really a diplomacy screen. I mean, you get some information on some countries. There's like some historical information, and there's some that just say, oh, declaring war on this country will displease this country, to let you know if you can get away with attacking anybody. Or, for example, Arabia has specifically this condition here. A successful Allied offensive in the Middle East may trigger a full-scale rebellion of the Arabian Peninsula. So that's different. You can see a relationship status with certain countries, and as far as I'm aware, most of this is handled historically, and there's not a whole lot you can do to influence it, other than, I guess, in this case, you know, push into the Ottoman Empire, I believe, and then these guys might join, but the rest of these seem to mostly be affected by declarations of war. Therefore, I don't think you can go really too ahistorical and get certain sides to join you if they're not supposed to, because I don't think the AI is going to go ahistorical. There's no war plans like to end all wars when we started that playthrough, so I can only infer. And then here we go down here, we can see when every country that is going to join the war soon is going to join it. The earliest ones are set in stone because they're historical. France is going to join, Belgium is going to join, Germany is going to join all at the same time, UK is going to join one turn after, very historical. Russia, one turn after that. I feel like Russia should be joining earlier than that, but I don't know. There are also situations where there's a variable at play, and I believe this is mostly as ahistorical as it gets unless you start declaring war as the player on a bunch of other things. This game is also designed to be played with other players, so I guess one player could go ahistorical, another player could go ahistorical, and then this could get real crazy. But against the AI, I don't imagine that it's going to get really crazy. So in between 9 and 11 turns, the Ottomans will join, and then after 20 turns or so, Italy will join the war as well. And that's as far as we can see for right now. These are probably mostly based on historical dates. It's 118 turns. We also have some victory conditions, as we can see here. There's stars, so I guess whoever has the most stars at the end wins. That's my assumption. Doesn't really tell me. But clearly defeating Germany is the #1 goal, which I find kind of funny considering Austria started the fucking war, but they are less valuable, of course, because Germany's stronger. And then we want to keep France in the war, keep Great Britain in the war. Keeping Russia in the war is less important. I mean, historically, they leave the war, and I believe in this game, in 1917, there is an event that makes them leave the war. So I'm kind of surprised that this is a victory condition. I'd assume someone else, right? More like the USA or just not Russia. Someone that's gonna leave the war no matter what. Because I believe there is a historical event for that in this game. And then one to defeat all enemies before January of 1919. The war ended in 1918, didn't it? So I guess this can go past the historical end date at the very least. That's very interesting. We also have access to a production screen, and I guess this changes over time. We also have a research screen where research goes no matter what we do. We can buy additional labs for different research areas. Yeah, and we can also focus a certain research at the detriment of others, as I understand it. And so I don't know what buying labs. Oh, here we go. It says it right here. It's a little hard to read. It's a dark color on a dark background, but it looks like 30 production points to make another lab. Okay. And we have focus points as well. Maybe it's not focusing at the detriment of others, but instead focusing at the expenditure of focus points. I'm going to be inferring a lot of stuff in this playthrough because the game didn't really teach me anything. One thing that I've also read about this game that I'm not exactly too sure about is that because there's a max manpower that never really comes back unless you disband your way to it, I did read that there's also points where you get low enough manpower that you earn an irreversible penalty around roughly 70 and 30%. So I guess I'm going to have to do some math and mark down the starting manpower and those points to avoid for these countries, because the last thing I want to do is get some irreversible penalties. Apparently the lowest penalty is to straight up just lose efficiency of your forces, and there's a minor penalty before that. I don't know if this is necessarily the smartest idea given Serbia's limited manpower, but I do believe the first thing I should do here is make some more regular infantry with them. So I'm going to go ahead and purchase that with my very limited production points. You only gain like 8 per turn at the start as Serbia, something like that. Let me check. Yes, and it looks like every new unit you make, every new anything you make actually increases your upkeep. So I think I'm making even less now. Yeah, I'm making 4. And where's that listed? Right here. Yeah, there's an upkeep. And the reason I want... I don't know if I can actually get more of this. I don't know. But the reason that I want more infantry is because they're going to be stronger than a lot of the units Serbia has. We have small garrisons at the cities. We have regular garrisons spread all around. And if I can get some regular infantry to just hold my goddamn lines, that would be probably incredibly useful. Maybe, I don't know if that's worth it, but I was thinking maybe like I could even trade out infantry and these garrisons with the disband feature. I'm not sure. Now we need to figure out how to brace a front line to deal with the incoming horde of Austro-Hungarians, which will be undistracted while Russia has yet to join the war. So one of the easiest decisions I feel like I can make right now, there's a small garrison right here. I have one rail capacity that I can utilize this turn. I think I'm gonna go rail him up by Belgrade into this forest. And holy shit. We also don't yet have any entrenchment on this infantry, so I'm going to send him out of the forest into some maybe less desirable terrain in order to shorten the front. So right here, I've made it 1 hex shorter, therefore it should help me defend this a little better despite not being in as defensible of a location. He can at least make trenches the longer he sits here. Hell, I could go ahead and attack this garrison, small garrison right here, and maybe do some damage as well. Can also go ahead and move this artillery up. I think it makes more sense to move it here than anywhere. And then it looks like it can't attack when it moves, but it should be in range to shoot at anything over here next. On the west front, it's really quite obvious this garrison is not entrenched. Move it here and get a better front going on that the Austrians can't try to slither on through. Actually, it seems like I've made the right decision in moving this unit up because I just realized something. Forests, additionally, dense trees offer protection for attackers, making this terrain type hard to defend because the attackers get a 5 defense bonus. Defenders get a 7 compared to a grassland where defenders get a 4, so 3 less, but the attackers don't get shit. Therefore, defending in a forest is actually a terrible fucking idea by the sound of this. Probably going to be staying pretty defensive as Serbia for most of this, but I'm going to take an early on opportunity to maybe inflict some casualties. I'm going to move the cavalry out of whatever this town is. And we're going to take a little peek here. Alright, so we got some incoming infantry. I guess that's to be expected. The cavalry's probably going to retreat back at a certain point, but I think maybe dealing an early on casualty here to this garrison could be nice. I mean, it's their manpower after all. They lose manpower. They're not getting it back. And we can deal some good damage here. And these are better defensive locations than back here. They're going to attack this army next anyway, so might as well send some cav up here maybe as a distraction. Yep, let's go ahead and attack. So we lose 1. We deal 4. Not so bad, I don't think. Let's take the cavalry. And it looks like we might be able to completely wipe them out with 1 attack. At the very least, I know if you force an enemy to retreat with cavalry, you actually deal more damage because you used cavalry. And since we have 1 cavalry, let's try and put it to use. 7. Not even 6. 7. We completely wiped the bitch out. So now we can just stay put and I guess wait for them to come to us. We still have this little garrison here that we can move. We also have this one we need to evacuate very clearly. So I'm going to retreat that at least to as far as it can go. Can I repair it if it has moved? I can repair it if it has moved. I just can't repair it as much. Before I was able to repair 3. I took a peek. And now I can only repair 2. So let's go ahead and give this some repairs so that we can get it back up to strength in case we need it. I'm not yet sure where this garrison will really be needed, so I'm probably just going to move it up the middle for now and figure it out later. I know historically Bulgaria joins the war and that becomes an issue. It lets the Ottomans through, and we'll probably need to refront some units over here, but for now, hopefully that's not necessarily going to be an issue. So we're just going to move this guy up the middle and see what to do with him later. And then I'll leave pretty much everything else in place. I want to get something over to Kraljevo, and I can't make small garrisons, and I noted that they don't actually take up any manpower from what I can tell, these small ones. But maybe I could take one from the rear and send it forward, so long as the Bulgarians aren't in the war yet, so long as the Greeks aren't in the war yet. No one can really get here anyway, so I could always send someone back here. And it looks like that's basically our whole turn right there, so I'm going to go ahead and end the turn and hope this defensive play for most of it, offensive only where we don't have anything defensive really happening, works out for the better. So let's hit end turn. The turns at least are pretty quick in this game. They're pretty loud too. Oh my god. I'm sorry, I went dead silent because I could not believe these two armies were enough to just run up and destroy that cab unit. Holy shit. I thought it would last longer than that. I really did. I guess the first thing I'm going to do is just go into repair mode and repair anyone that needs repairs. Like you right there. You could use some repairs. Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. Looks like you can only repair units that haven't attacked or moved yet or whatever. So just repair everyone I can. Repair through the damage we just took this past turn. This dude has a lot more defense and probably more health, if that's a thing. Again, I don't know the mechanics of this game. The tutorial's really lackluster, so I can just hope that I don't suck as much as I did to lose that cavalry. Hopefully that's just the thing that opens my eyes and lets me know that I don't know shit, and that I just get better from there. The Austrians have brought up their own cavalry. They were pretty quick about what they did. Those turn replays go by really quick. Really nice after playing To End All Wars, where I have to sit around for 10 minutes just to load a turn replay. I'm going to send this garrison up northeast to sit on this city for the time being. I don't really know what else to do with it. I'm not planning on going too offensive, but I do have a gun that I can use. Okay, here's the number. It costs 10 ammunition to fire this artillery once. I'm only making 3 a turn. That means it takes roughly 4 turns before I can fire this. Now, the name of the game right now really is all about staying defensive, so I don't want to go attack anyone unnecessarily. Doing anything offensive really fucking cost me an arm and a leg. But then again, if I didn't send that cavalry forward, they might have just ganged up on this infantry, which for all I know might have been just as bad. Looks like these guys aren't yet entrenching either, so it might take a couple turns. This infantry could have gotten wiped out. And as far as I understand, infantry are just generally worth more than cavalry. They're worth more manpower, they take more upkeep, they cost the same amount to produce, but cavalry is really, by the looks of it, just a much shittier unit. It's mainly good in that it has that extra, I guess it's the shock attack that deals extra damage when you get someone to run away. So that's what makes them useful. Their line of sight, they're good scouts. We don't need scouts as Serbia. We don't need offensive units as Serbia. So that's my rationalization for that loss. We're getting infantry. Hey, look, I just cleared up 2 production upkeep. So we're going to get a little more production points, which is good because I have to spend all of it on repairs anyway. And 3 turns until we get this infantry. But I think there's still a point to shoot this gun when I can shoot it. I mean, it may be better saved for more tactful moments, but simultaneously, we just want to do any casualties we can, right? Because we know the manpower is limited in a way. So, plus, anything we can weaken them by means they have less to throw at us. Looks like they went ahead here and they assigned a commander as well. This commander, let's see. Do you have information about the commander? No, you don't. But here's the commander, von Hotzendorf. Oh, I can rename units? I guess my own commanders I can rename. Oh, dude, that's really fun. So you know what that means, right, guys? When I get a new commander, I'm going to ask you guys in the chat if you want me to rename anything. Oh, I can rename everything in the game. Well, there you have it. Let me know if you have any name suggestions, like, ever. I have no intention of ever attacking this guy's entrenchment so high, so let's get some damage where there's not as much entrenchment, because I feel like that's just better. It says we could deal 1 damage, so I'm gonna give it a shot. We dealt absolutely nothing, so that's a big fucking shame, and going on the offensive is completely pointless. Oh well. right, artillery didn't win World War I, so let me rationalize my failure here now. And with that, there's not a lot else to do except hit end turn and see where the next turn brings us. Oh, it brings us to Germany invading France and Belgium. Well, France and Belgium are now in the war. Wow, these turn resolutions are so loud. I really need to turn that volume down, even if it makes the rest of the game quieter. Jesus fuck. Alright, we have a little more movement on the French and Belgium front. Moving ships around. Germany declares war. Germany has allied with Austria-Hungary. I thought they were already allied. Oh well. And declared war on France and Serbia. And Belgium. Germany's declaration of war does not come as a big surprise. France's armies are confident they can deal with the German aggression. Right. Right. After the refusing of their ultimatum, Germany has declared war on neutral Belgium. The British are outraged and have vowed to assist Belgium in the war. Liege captured. Central Power Forces have captured the mighty fortress of Liege. I didn't really have a way to prevent that now, did I? So Serbia's war effort has increased to 95%. Ah, right, I forgot that was a thing. Countries, when they join the war, they're not fully mobilized at the start, and the more they mobilize, the more they produce resources, and just generally the more efficient that will make them, as I understand it. There's no tooltip, but yeah, France, Belgium, Germany. Great. And next turn we get Great Britain, and the turn after that we get Russia, and then the Ottomans. So that's going to be fun. So the game just taught me a little tidbit now that we have our first ever fighter unit here, which to me does not look like a fighter. It looks kind of like a shack and a gate. But when you attack enemies and you don't do damage with units like this, including my artillery that I used in Serbia, you actually can lower their efficiency rating, which can make them just worse at generally everything they're doing. So I guess that artillery shot wasn't necessarily in vain then. I think one really notable thing about the situation in France is that this game, I'm realizing, it doesn't give you the ability to change what was planned in history necessarily at the start. Germany must do the Schlieffen Plan, Serbia will be attacked, and France is set up around what would become the Maginot, with the idea of wanting to retake Alsace-Lorraine. And the defenses here are expectedly weak in terms of what's actually sitting here. And so I think I'm going to play this with a push. So I know the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this unit here, and I'm just going to move him forward because he can get right through this line. There's no big amount of zone of control that I can notice in this game. You can't necessarily block someone from trying to pull some kind of maneuver like this, but I do believe there's supply in this game. Maybe not, but I know trying to get my foot in the door and reach Strasbourg, which is completely undefended. Look, there's some zone of control, since I can't just go step on Strasbourg, but it's completely undefended. So if I just move ahead, move ahead, there you go, bam, I've moved ahead, I've arrived, and the entrenchments here are even better than what this unit was sitting on initially. So he's now entrenched to level 8, which is a huge increase. Of course, he wasn't even on the front line, but now I have my foot in the door and we can see where we want to go from here. Now we can also see that unit recruitment is very different by country. This is all Serbia can recruit. Belgium does not have access to cavalry and artillery, but it does have armored cars. France has so much fucking shit. I like how they're aesthetically different too. But France has like everything. It doesn't have everything unlocked at the start. Like, it doesn't have armored cars unlocked at the start. It doesn't have railroad guns, armor. It doesn't have bombers at the start. But it can research it. It can unlock this stuff. It has access to quite a bit, whereas these are kind of hard capped in what they can ever have. Of course, both of these countries fell in World War I, so it doesn't look like we're necessarily outnumbered by the Germans, and either way, Russia will enter the war in 2 turns and really distract them. The UK will enter the war in a turn and add some more manpower to the northwest should we want to send the BEF over. Therefore, I'm going to say the first turn, I'm not going to recruit anyone as France. I'm going to instead expand the ammunition production, which is going to take 30 points, which is currently most of my points. I don't think this takes up any upkeep. We're currently gaining 36 income as France. Economic output based on manpower reserves. Oh, that's interesting. Oh. So whatever, I guess that determines your production points. So the more manpower you lose, the worse your economy starts to do as well. Okay, that's good to know. I could also expand my research, but I know artillery is probably going to be very, very important on this front. So I'm probably going to want to upgrade my ammunition in the short or long term, at least to 10, because it takes 10 just to fire one arty. I'm going to need ammunition. So let's start by purchasing that. It costs 30. The next one costs 35. So every additional one costs more and more, and that'll be our limiter. We're getting 36 per turn, so next turn we could probably afford another one unless we take a decent amount of losses, which who knows, we might. But at the very least, I know I want to get this up to 10. Therefore, we can keep at least our current singular arty piece firing. Looking away from that main front for a moment, we have some African holdings to worry about too, and most of them not very consequential, but we did gain some naval assets as well. I know convoys are a thing at some point in this game. I don't see any are active right now. We do have some naval units with which we can put to use though. I'm going to take this submarine and move it over into the strait to kind of guard, because in this game you have to go through units. You can't go over them, including submarines. You can't just pass over a submarine. If you pass over it, you discover it, and that's how that works. I'm also going to move this submarine down southeast. We see an Italian ship, and eventually, hopefully, that will join us and be on our side. We have some limited forces. It's certainly going to change once we get Great Britain on our side, but I'm going to go ahead and send this submarine, yeah, let's say around here. I think, who owns this right now? Italy. Oh, no, don't declare war. Oh, God. Italy owns this. I don't think they should own that just yet. So I don't think that was granted to them until they joined the war historically, but maybe it's just granted in advance so they didn't have to write an event. I believe most of the Austrian Navy, if they even have one, which, yeah, they do have some ships, should be in here currently. So there shouldn't be any real force to worry about at the moment. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move these units closer to this point and try to kind of blockade them in. Move the pre-dreadnought in the center rather than just putting one unit in there. I might put a submarine there and just let that submarine sit. But I have to get a submarine over there first. I also have a dreadnought, and now these dreadnoughts are apparently super fucking powerful. They cost upkeep, 24 turns to make one. Small manpower costs, but let's see. Powerful but expensive and time-consuming to produce. Their main purpose is to oppose enemy battle fleets and maintain naval superiority. So it sounds like my surface fleet should stay relatively together. I don't actually have much of a surface fleet as France. I only have a couple ships, so this game really takes micro away and makes it pretty macro since you have such few troops. I have an armored cruiser for my pre-dreadnought. I have an armored cruiser for my dreadnought, so I guess that's something, but I feel like putting the entire fleet together is probably a smarter idea. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start sailing that down and make a kind of a French battle group that can hopefully be used to respond to threats and things like that. My submarines will probably be used to block points, like I might stick one here so I can move the battle fleet around, for example. In Serbia, there's not much to see, not much to say, not much to do. We have finally entrenched over here in these grasslands. I'd really love to move up and set up a new defensive position on the other side, away from this fucking forest where it's more optimal. That's what I was hoping the cavalry could accomplish, but we have seen that things that don't have as good of defense as at least a main infantry group, the AI is willing to zerg it, because they didn't zerg this unit and they had an opportunity to do it. So I think they're a little more cautious about attacking full infantry units. Thus, I do believe I was definitely in my right to go ahead and set another infantry to production for Serbia. Moving a corps up here is suicide. I would at least need that new infantry to be finished if I want to move something up here and hope to push the front up into more favorable terrain. We don't have the ammunition to fire again yet. We're going to have to wait another turn before we can fire again. And there's no reason to move because we really just need to be defensive and keep the Serbians alive so that we can at least distract the Austrians. And I don't see that we have any good opportunities for attacking currently presenting themselves. We don't have the manpower to really do anything. Incurring losses severely inhibits Serbia as a whole, and anywhere where we can score even amounts of casualties, we're trading infantry for infantry, and Austria is going to win that fight, especially this early into the war before Russia gets mobilized, and Russia's going to take a while to get mobilized once they actually do join the war. So I would rather not throw my men away any more than I have by throwing that cavalry up here. I still might risk sending an infantry up here, though. We don't have a lot of spare manpower to really move around in France, but we do have 2 cavalry way in the rear that need to be deployed up to the front. We only have 1 rail capacity to really move anything really quickly, however. And I do remember in history, this fight leading to Paris was very mobile, which of course, it has cavalry. The infantry are constantly moving, and when you move and attack in this game, you're actually not attacking as efficiently as you could be. So I definitely want to send some cavalry up to the front, that's without a doubt. Now, I don't want to send them all the way up to the front into Belgium where they're just going to fucking die. That's suicide. But somewhere generally in the front where they can react to things that are happening, I guess kind of close to Paris. I'm going to specifically send this cavalry up just south of Calais, because I don't believe they can move this far in one turn, even if they had no units in between them. So he'll be close enough to maybe respond to the front if it proves to be something that might be worth it. I mean, cavalry is an offensive unit. It's also not really that valuable in a lot of games like this. And the next turn, we will send this one forward by rail. I'm not going to run him all the way up there. I'm going to utilize the fighter this turn to attack this little garrison down here. Because if I could wipe this out, or at least force it to retreat, that would be nice. We can hurt its efficiency or something to gain us some kind of advantage there. That would always be great. I also learned that you also need ammo to fire the ship guns, not just the arty guns, but not the fighters, maybe the bombers. So you need ammo for a stupid amount of things, and we certainly don't have enough of it at the time being. I'm going to take this garrison, I'm going to move it forward just a space, so it's still kind of in the realm of an Alsace-Lorraine push, because I feel like what's really going to have to happen here is the AI is either going to let us walk into Strasbourg, or they're going to move, right? They're going to have to abandon some of their fortifications because they don't have the units up here. I'm sure they have the units back here, but they're going to need to move them, right? So this push will at least kind of keep them on their toes. That's what I'm hoping. And I want to keep some units in the area. This garrison, on the other hand, is definitely going to be moving closer to Paris. I don't know how close to Paris, but we're going to move it in the direction of Paris. Let's say we move it to right about here for right now. Somewhere around here is probably a good place to stick a garrison and let them entrench. And then I'm going to go ahead and move this artillery forward a little closer to the front. It can't move too well this turn. Actually, which front should I move it towards? Let's say I'm going to move it closer to Alsace-Lorraine because this is where all the entrenchments are. There's no entrenchments really over here, and there's not going to be entrenchments over here because this is not where the front line is going to stay. And this is about as far as you can move this turn anyway. And then when we get them up closer, I may pull this garrison back towards Paris. I have to see how the situation develops over here to really figure out how this is going to work. I'm not moving any of the Belgians because, dude, they're about to be overrun anyway. I might as well not quicken their demise. We are playing the Entente at the start after all, so it's going to be a pretty defensive war for us at the very beginning. But with new countries joining, this should spice up really quickly, I imagine. But for now, we have a nice full episode, maybe going over by a few minutes here. But I hope you guys are enjoying the game so far, and I certainly hope I continue to. And we can get through this and hopefully win as the Entente. But for now, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.